Welcome to a special Friday edition of the Good Old Football Podcast as we wrap up that Thursday night AFC North clash between America's teams, the Browns and Bengals, maybe battling it out for third place in the AFC North, but we will see how that all shakes out. A lot of optimism for both teams at one point in the game at least, but in the end, Cleveland comes out on top 35-30, your final from Northeast Ohio. A few takeaways. First and foremost, Baker Mayfield stepped up. I've ripped Baker plenty on this show. I actually thought before the game on Thursday night that he wouldn't step up. I thought that I've been saying for a few weeks now that I worry that he's lost his swagger, that confidence that made him so good in the beginning had faded over time, and that's what will happen when you play for the Cleveland Browns. They have a way of beating people down who previously were talented. Baker did not do that. Kevin Stefanski wrote up plays that was able to get him to the outside. When he got out of the pocket last night, I thought on that first drive, after he killed the Bengals by getting out of the pocket, they would say, okay, we've got to contain him. They never really seemed to do that. And when he was in the pocket, he couldn't do much. He was dinking and dunking. He gets outside of the pocket. He's slinging it downfield. I'll be curious to see if that's a new trend in the NFL as a whole. We've seen Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes have a lot of success with that, in addition to staying in the pocket. But Baker just doesn't work in the pocket. Baker Mayfield stepped up on Thursday night. He knew that the hot new kid in the state, Joe Burrow, was coming up. He knew he was on national TV. He knew they were talking about maybe he's not the guy, maybe him and OBJ don't work, and he absolutely stepped up. We'll see if he can keep that going all season long, but right now he looked good, and you got to be happy with what you saw out of him on Thursday if you're a Browns fan. Maybe throw that week one tape in the trash, burn the tape, as Blue Jackets head coach John Tortorella likes to say after performances like that. Week two, and I know it's against the Bengals defense that doesn't look good. We'll get to that in a second, but you got to be happy if you're a Browns fan. Speaking of that Browns offense, Odell Beckham Jr. had a good game. I still think you trade him. I still think you do. Here's why. One, if you listen to the show regularly, you know that I'm big on the fact most Super Bowl winning teams rarely have a star wide receiver. Rarely. You just look at last year alone. I mean, sure, you can say Tyreek Hill for the Chiefs, but that Chiefs offense is a system of its own. Patrick Mahomes makes that thing go. If Tyreek Hill were to be off the face of the planet tomorrow, that Chiefs offense would not miss a beat. But you look at the 49ers, who, by the way, had a 10-point lead in the Super Bowl in the fourth quarter last year. Who's their best receiver? All right? The year before that, you had the Rams and Patriots. Julian Edelman won MVP. The Rams have done well the last few years with a bunch of B receivers, B and C plus guys, rather than A plus guys like Odell Beckham Jr. seemingly has the ability to be when he wants to be. But you look at the Browns, and I say that's a pretty good team last night, but they really need a lot of help in that back seven on defense. How do you get something like that? You trade away a star wide receiver. Super Bowl teams do not have star wide receivers. The Patriots all these years have never, outside of Randy Moss in 2007, name another one. I've been over this on the podcast before. I've put that out there. I say you trade OBJ. I don't think they'll do it, but I think if they want to improve that defense, and clearly there's a lot of improvements, I think the Bengals offense is good. They're not 30 points good. If you're Cleveland right now, yeah, smile about the win, but be worried that you gave up 30 points to a Bengals offensive line that is absolutely atrocious, and let's go to that. I'm sorry I have to keep talking about it, but the right side of the Bengals offensive line is one of the most heinous things I have ever seen in my life. You've got Fred Johnson over there last night at right guard, who got cut, was on the Steelers practice squad this time a year ago. Bobby Hart, we've been over. Bobby Hart, I've never seen anyone who just doesn't seem to care so much as Bobby Hart. When Joe Burrow got strip sacked inside of his own 5, Bobby Hart put a pinky out to try to stop Myles Garrett. Don't move your feet, Bobby. Just put your old pinky out and see if you can stop the best defensive end in football. I would rather them just not put a right tackle on the field than keep Bobby Hart out there. He makes the Bengals so much worse. Put anything else out there. Put the punter Kevin Huber out there. At least he would try. And the Bengals have great weapons on offense. Joe Burrow looks so good. You got Tyler Boyd, you got A.J. Green, who seems to be getting healthier. John Ross, still a number 3 option, although sometimes he forgets that he's on a football field. Drew Sample's looking good. C.J. Uzomah, it looks like he might be out for the year, but when he was in there, he's looking good. But with this offensive line, I mean, having these weapons with this offensive line, it's like having a Philly cheesesteak with no bread. You got all that good stuff, but it's not worth much if you don't have something to hold it together. It's going to be sloppy. It's going to be a mess all the time, and that's what we're seeing. It's absolutely absurd, and I'm going to not harp on it all season because it's already week 2, and I've done it both weeks. But the fact that the Bengals knew how awful that right side of the offensive line was last year, and we're just like, yep, we'll just see if it maybe works out this year. Maybe they'll just magically get good in the offseason and magically get a change in attitude where they start trying. Nope, didn't happen. So now you're stuck with your first-year quarterback, the future of your franchise, just getting murdered out there. And it doesn't get any easier. Myles Garrett's not going anywhere. TJ Watt, by the way, you still got to play him twice. The Ravens, you still got to play them twice. Good luck. Thank God Joe Burrow has 10 days to heal back up, sit in an ice bath for the next week. Speaking of Joe Burrow, he puts the ball where no one else does. Look, I love Andy Dalton, and I'm not going to compare the two. We never saw a stretch of 2 games where Andy Dalton was as precise with the football as Joe Burrow has been the past 2 weeks. He puts it in so many tight spots, and it's an incredible thing to see. I'm pumping my fist in the air right now. It's an incredible thing to see. I mean, he's dropping 2-3 dimes a quarter. It's great to see. And, look, I mean, the Bengals receivers, A.J. Green had one last night in the end zone where maybe he could have caught. Tyler Boyd at the end of third quarter. He's got to catch that. He knows he's got to catch that. And who knows what happens there. I think that would have still left the Bengals 9 points down instead of 12 points down or something in that area. Is that right? Yeah, because it was 28-16. So had they got a touchdown, no, that would have put them within 8 then. Got to catch that. I mean, he, especially on those out routes and those comebacks and those little, when they go out in the flats, he's putting that ball where only the receiver can get it, and that has to be such a perfect throw. And he does it seemingly every time. You got to catch those balls. You got to make things happen. Back to Cleveland. Here's another reason I say get rid of OBJ and load up on that defense. Nick Chubb has got to be the focal point of this offense. I know you got Jarvis Landry. I know you gave Austin Hooper big money. I know you got a number 1 overall quarterback who has a Heisman Trophy sitting on his desk. But Nick Chubb, I mean, I don't know how, I'll say this because it's an honest thought that came to mind last night. He churns his legs and moves after tackles in a way that I was trying to rack my mind. I can only remember Adrian Peterson in my lifetime running through guys. And look, I know it's the Bengals defense, but it's an NFL defense. You have to play who's in front of you. I don't buy into the whole, well, you were playing this team, that team. Everyone's good in the NFL. Now, obviously, some are better than others, but I can't remember a guy who looked like that on an NFL field since Adrian Peterson in his prime. I'm just talking about last night. And remember, Nick Chubb's a guy who finished second in the league in rushing yards last year after only Derrick Henry. Make him the focal point of this offense. Don't make this more complicated than it needs to be. Plus, it lets Baker Mayfield continue to develop, get his confidence back to where it was when he came in the league. We know Baker's not where he needs to be. As well as he played last night, if you can get that out of him on a consistent basis, great. But I don't think anyone's faithful that that's going to happen right now. And I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying, and I don't think anyone will disagree, he has not lived up to expectations so far. And here's the other thing. You get Nick Chubb running that ball, you keep the clock going, you keep your defense off the field, which, again, looks like right now, at best, the 3rd best defense in the division. The Ravens and Steelers clearly ahead of them, and that's an issue for the Browns, is that they are playing in a division with, maybe 2 of the top 5 teams in the conference, if not 2 of the top 3 teams in the conference after the Chiefs and Ravens. So stick to Nick Chubb. Those are my takeaways. Baker stepped up. Good for him. Didn't think he would. He proved a lot of people wrong. Make Nick Chubb the focal point if you're the Browns. I still say trade OBJ if you seriously want to contend for a division title and, moreover, a Lombardi trophy. Help that defense out right now. Super Bowl winning teams rarely have great wide receivers. Your focal point should be Nick Chubb. You got the offensive line. You got the pieces around him and Baker Mayfield to make it happen. Make Nick Chubb the focal point. Beef up that defense. The Bengals, I don't know what to tell you, because everyone on earth seems to know that the right side of the offensive line needs help, except for people within Paul Brown Stadium. So, we'll have Joe Burrow in a body cast by Thanksgiving. But until then, we'll get to watch him throw those beautiful balls that no one else can seem to do. So the Bengals, for a second week in a row, they hang in there until late in the game, but can't really. They did backdoor Burrow, they call him, but, weren't really in it. But they still had a shot in the fourth quarter, which you can't be mad about. But at the same time, it's kind of like week one against the Chargers. You had opportunities that you did not capitalize on, that if you had, you would have won. I mean, the Browns offensively, I don't think they could have played any better. The Bengals, on the other hand, on both sides of the ball, certainly could have played a lot better. Zach Taylor's got to start feeling the heat too. He is now 2-16. I mean, any way you put it, 2-16 is not good. I mean, things like tackling and the offensive line moving their damn feet should not be an issue when you're talking about NFL. It shouldn't be an issue in high school, let alone the NFL. So I like Zach Taylor. He seems like a great guy. He says all the right things, and he seems confident. He seems like a good leader. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to start winning some games. And I know that you got a rookie at quarterback, and you've lost the first 2 games by 3 and then by 5. But at some point, got to start seeing results, and to this point, it has not happened. I believe the Bengals up next they're in Philadelphia on the 27th, so they've got 10 days, but that's a good Eagles team. And then, you look at the gauntlet coming down here for the Bengals. You got at Philly, the Jaguars at home, who look pretty solid. Then you're at the Ravens, at the Colts. Cleveland comes back to Cincinnati. That's a gauntlet. Forget where they play. Eagles, Jaguars, Ravens, Colts, Browns, Titans, Steelers. Those are the next 2, 4, 6 games for the Bengals. Can you find 2 wins in there? You better beat the Jaguars. You better take care of the Browns when they come to Cincinnati. Because I'll tell you what, second half of the schedule is easier, but you got to keep Joe Burrow alive. And you got to keep his confidence alive as well. He's a guy who hates to lose, and you love that about him, but tough sledding out there. Cleveland, on the other hand, has a fairly manageable schedule. They've got the Washington football team coming up next Sunday, or a week from Sunday, I should say, and then they go to the overrated Cowboys, host the Colts. That's a 4:25 game on CBS. That'll be fun to watch. Go to Pittsburgh, come to Cincinnati, and then host the Las Vegas Raiders, Houston Texans, and Philadelphia Eagles. 3 straight home games. So an opportunity for the Browns here to pull ahead. The Bengals, on the other hand, you're kind of looking at a point where you had a chance to maybe start the season 0-2, and now you're looking at horribleness if you don't shore things up quick. And I don't know what you do, because offensive linemen aren't just sitting out there on the street, as they like to say, ready to go. So we'll be back next week with a regular episode. Just wanted to recap that real quick, get these things off my chest. So if you like the episode, you know any Bengals and Browns fans, send it along to them. Say, hey, check this guy out. He doesn't suck that bad. And do me a favor for the weekend. Help cure some of the pain that the Bengals offensive line stores within my heart. All right, it's the Good Old Football Podcast. You got anything you want to say? I'm at Matt Edwards on Twitter. Have a good weekend, everyone.